Hello and welcome to my channel. It is winter, and in winter you don't get out into your garden nearly as much as you'd like to. But winter is a really nice time to take a look at new garden books and some old garden books just to see what's out there and see what new tricks you can pick up. So today I want to talk about Charles Downing's newest book. The title is Compost, and its subtitle is How to Transform Garden Waste into New Life. This is a book to make composting not seem so complicated. It's not dogmatic. There are no hard and fast rules that you absolutely must apply in order to be successful. And that's one of the things I like very much about Downing's approach to gardening in general. He particularly explains the use and importance and centrality of compost to a no-dig garden system. And that's what I do. I do various forms of no-dig gardening, and compost is pretty important. The book explains how composting works. It provides a really practical guide for regular people like me. I'm going to talk about what I really liked about the book. There's a lot to like about this book. First off, it's a fairly slim volume. It's a relatively quick read, and I love it because it's very clear and succinct language. You don't have to be a scientist or have a good science background to really understand the principles and the ideas that are set forth here about soil science. He breaks the science down into really easily digestible pieces. I really didn't mean to make that a pun, but compost, digesting, etc. At any rate, he breaks the science of composting down into bite-sized pieces that you can really get your head around, understand quickly and easily, and then applying that. It's very based in his experience as well as understanding of soil science and soil ecology. So that is one of the nice things that I love about this book. It's a quick read, and it's well written, and it's quite succinct in its approach and its language. Let me give you a couple of examples about how he sets forth and makes his points really clearly in this book. One of the things that he uses are really well-drawn illustrations, like this one here, and to talk about how the plants break down nutrients and access nutrition. And it's which is really essential to understanding. He explains why compost, although it doesn't have high contents of N, P, and K, is actually more beneficial than fertilizers, organic or otherwise, that you might add to your garden, which feed the plants, but not necessarily feed the soil microorganisms that bring nutrition to those plants. While a lot of things I have read about composting take a long time to explain these principles, Downing is able to do it really quickly. For example, in the chapter on compost versus chemical feeds to your plants, he breaks this down in two very succinct pages, and much of which is a very nicely drawn, very clear, easy to understand illustration. When you learn about composting, you know that composting goes in different phases, but Downing really breaks that down easily for you. He has a chapter on the phases of decomposition, and I love it because this chapter goes on for about 4 pages, and he has this wonderful flow chart that shows you sort of the time and temperature and what you should expect at each phase. And it's really nice because it also parallels what I have been seeing in my most recent composting efforts, the role of heat, the absence of heat, and how quickly things break down. He talks about the difference between bacteria and fungi and their various roles in the compost process. Another thing I really like about this book is that he has these little chapters that are centered around myth busters. And I think this is a really great way to approach this topic in particular, because you see so much on the web, and you see so many articles, and you see so much on composting and what you have to do and what you shouldn't do and what you can compost and what you can't compost, and does it need to be hot? Is a cold process okay? Can you process and compost weeds, even perennial weeds and tough weeds? And he basically does a lot of myth busting in all of those things. So he breaks down those barriers that keep people from starting to compost or composting as much as they possibly can. So a couple of the myths that he busts. He says, there's a myth out there that no-dig systems need a whole lot of compost. And he says, yeah, that's true when you first build the no-dig garden, but subsequently, not so much, no more than any other garden. Another myth that he breaks down, you hear all the time about, the importance of creating a hot compost and why a hot composting system gets weeds and breaks down faster and gets weeds broken down and seeds, etc. And he says, is heat essential in the composting process? And his answer is no. And he tells you how to go about that process of composting in a cold pile, in a more static pile, in various different kinds of methods. What other myths? Can weeds be composted? He says yes. And maybe he's convinced me to actually go with tough perennial weeds and weed roots. Just maybe. I've been really hesitant in that, but I think he's got me convinced. All right. Another thing that I like is just the design of the book. This is done by DK Publishing. It came out first in the UK and now out this year in the United States. And it's a really clean book design. It almost has kind of a retro feel to it, which I rather like. It also is created with an environmental impact in mind. There are no glossy pages. There are no glossy photographs. There's no extra book jacket that that gets ripped up. And the design itself, so that's really nice. Just the presentation of the book. It's not super big. It's kind of holdable, and it's nice to just you can easily tuck it into your purse or into your backpack. It uses, in addition to the illustrations and nice charts that I showed you, I love the block prints that are throughout the book. And the artwork in this book is really very, very nice. Straightforward and very clean in design. It's got a lovely feel. It's not glossy, but it's just a good feeling. The paper has some heft, which I really like as well. So it's got a little bit of a retro feel with a lot of very up-to-date information. Okay, so who should read this book? Who might like this book? Well, anyone who is interested at starting or upping their compost game, for sure. Home gardeners who want to boost their compost know-how and confidence, for sure, would benefit from this book. No-dig gardeners, we all know if you're a no-dig gardener, the importance of compost. And people who are turned off by overly technical approaches or overly dogmatic approaches, or you've got to do this and you've got to have this perfect ratio, all of that, and sort of overly scientific language. You don't have to have, if you're not confident of your science IQ, you don't need to be intimidated by composting. And certainly this book breaks it down perfectly. So the book again is Charles Dowding, and the name of the book is Compost. Transform waste into new life. It's a great book, highly recommended. Easy to read. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. Down you go, Mr. Tiberius.